Good morning guys, it's Kentish, and this morning I thought I'd do something a little bit different, something a little bit closer to home for myself. So I thought I'd do a quick video about how to stay positive if you suffer from mental health issues. I'm not going to go into specifics because obviously the spectrum of mental health issues is very vast indeed. Yeah, I know from personal experience it's hard to maintain a positive outlook on things, especially if you suffer from depression and things of that kind of nature. They tend to. The thing with mental health disorders is they can happen to anyone at any time. That's what you have to remember. So, first step is not to blame yourself. It's easy to get into, especially if you suffer from self-destructive tendencies, it's easy to get into the habit of blaming yourself for the predicament that you might or might not be in. But the first thing you need to do is to not blame yourself. You've just got to think of it like I do. Think of it like the Crisis advert, yeah? If you remember that advert a couple of years back with the wolf. And it said, a crisis can happen to anyone at any time, and I don't care who you are. That's exactly the same for mental health issues. It can happen to anyone at any time, and it doesn't matter who you are at the end of the day. So it's not your fault that you're in the situation you are in mentally. I mean, they've got things in place these days so they can see if, you've got the symptoms of whatever, BPD, schizophrenia, whatever. They can go into it in more detail, whereas, in olden times, they didn't really know too much about mental health disorders, and, obviously they dealt with them a lot differently as to the way that they do now. So that's the first step. Stop blaming yourself. It's not your fault. Okay? You can blame yourself till the sun goes down for the way that you are feeling, but it's not your fault. You couldn't have seen that it was coming. With things such as depression and things like that, you can normally tell, you'll wake up and you'll feel like you haven't got any energy, or you feel like you can't do anything. You just physically can't get up the energy to do anything. Again, don't blame yourself, okay? It's a condition, okay? As much bad press as, and as much crap as people might say that don't understand because they haven't been in the same situation as you, it's a condition at the end of the day. If you wake up and you just feel like you can't do anything, or you're going to have a turn on that day, then there's no harm in ringing up and just explaining you're not feeling yourself that day. Don't beat yourself up about it. You can control these things, but you can't always control them. Everyone wakes up and has down days, but if they just divided that by, 9,000 times, they might get an idea of what it's like to have a mental illness. So don't blame yourself. If you have to get the day off, get the day off. You have to think of you at the end of the day. That's the most important thing, okay? Your well-being. It doesn't matter about the people around you. You have to be a bit selfish sometimes. Think of yourself. If you need to take time off, take the time off, recuperate, and think things through. Okay, so that's the first step. Stop blaming yourself. The second step is getting into a schedule. I'd say the second step is getting into a schedule, especially if you've been unemployed for a long period of time. It's easy to wake up and think, what's the point? Especially if a lot of people I've spoke to, in the past, and no doubt that I will speak to in the future as well, say that they've been applying for jobs left, right, centre, and they've just been getting turned down every single time. That's due to a number of reasons: criminal convictions, just loads of other people applying for jobs that have better experiences within the field, all kinds of reasons really. But it's easy for people in that kind of situation, and I've seen it, to think that they're worthless, to think that people aren't interested in them because they think, that they're not up to par with other people, that kind of thing, and people take a bit of a self-destructive nature after a while, in my experience. So the next thing to do is, as I say, is get into a schedule. Again, being turned away from jobs, that feeds into the not blaming yourself, okay? So, you apply for a job, you didn't get it, you can always ask for feedback, If you're sitting there blaming yourself for the reason, I didn't get this job, or it's all my faults, or I'm not clever enough, ask them for feedback. 9 times out of 10, employers will give you feedback. They'll tell you specifically why you didn't get the job, It's like, you didn't know enough about this course. And you can say, okay, well, in future, I'll go away, research a bit more about the course, or research a bit more about the company, and then if a job comes up, I'll be ready. I'll have my notes here, and you can relate to your notes, you can read off your notes, and then you'll know everything for when you're going into the interview, should a job come up there again. They will give you feedback if you ask for it. So as I say, step 2, getting into a schedule. So you've been unemployed for, say, 6 months, 5 months, and you're feeling like you're feeling like you don't have to do anything, so therefore you won't do anything. What you need to do, and this goes into getting back into working, because at the end of the day, you need to be doing something. If it's voluntary, if it's YouTube like I do, just something. Everyone needs a reason. Yeah, everyone needs a reason. Otherwise you're just going to keep going round and round and round, okay? You need to get into some kind of a schedule. If you're going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're waking up at, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, tweak that. Tweak it slowly over time. So you're going to bed earlier and you're waking up a bit earlier as well, and just keep changing it, week on week, until you're doing, what kind of sleeping pattern you need to do if you were to get a 9 to 5 job. Someone was to turn around to you tomorrow and say, I've got a 9 to 5 here, are you interested? It pays 16 grand a year, do you want this job? You're going to say yes, especially if you're on benefits, you're going to say yes. On benefits, it doesn't matter, even if you get PPI, is it PPI? No, PIP, or any benefits pretty much. Having a job, you're going to earn more money at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what benefits you're on, you're still going to earn more money having a job. So that should be your end goal, okay? You can suppress mental illness. You can't cure mental illness. Mental illness is the same as alcoholism. You can suppress it, but it's always going to be there. So, going back into the schedule, it's learning to live with what might be considered defects of your personality. It's making these defects possibly part of your personality, learning to live with them. So, for example, I have social anxiety. I've had clinical social anxiety, and I know what that's, I know what that's linked to. It's mostly linked to being bullied as a teenager, but because I've had it for, for 14 years plus now, I've suffered from social anxiety. I've learnt to live with it, I've learnt my limits. That's another thing, pushing into the schedule thing. Once you're waking up at, like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or something like that, and you're going to bed at a half decent time, like before midnight basically, you can start to push boundaries a bit more, if you suffer from social anxiety, try going out at a quiet time, maybe once a week, even if it's just down a park or something, because then, if you're going out quiet time, granted, nobody's probably going to be there, but you can't guarantee that, can you? In your mind, if you suffer from social anxiety, then your mind's going to be throwing up all kinds of cautions, what if there is someone down there? What if I walk past someone? So you're putting yourself outside of your comfort zone, and if you suffer from any kind of mental illness, that is what you need to do. If you suffer from depression, then maybe think about the future instead of the here and now. That's what I find works for me, because depression is also something I've suffered with since my teens, in varying degrees. So what you need to do is not focus on now, focus on the future. Okay? Just because everything's going to shit at the moment, it doesn't mean, 10 years' time, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen? It might be you sitting here telling other people tips about how to cope with mental illness. You don't know what's going to happen. That's the thing with life. You don't know what's going to happen. So you need to think, you need to push yourself, push your way of thinking. With a lot of mental illnesses, we know we've got them. It's like it's like with social anxiety or anxieties, or basically any form of mental illness. If you are someone that's got it, why do you think X? We understand that it's irrational that we think X. We all know that. It's like we understand that that is an irrational way of thinking, but it's one of those things. It's very hard to control. It's like everyone, it's like alcoholics, they know they're alcoholics. They might say, or like they might deny that they're an alcoholic, but they know, if you are or not. And it's the same for mental illness as well. You know if something's not right with you. It's the way your body works. You know if something's not right. It's learning to get into that pushing the boundaries way of thinking, really. Social anxiety, go out quiet time once a week. So what happened then? What happened when you went out? Did anything happen? Did anything bad happen? Did anyone turn around and slap you in the face? No? Okay, well, next week, I want you to go out 2 days a week. Okay? Go out 2 days a week at quiet times. See if anything happens then. That's double the amount of days. Chances of something actually happening are very, very low. But because of the way your brain's hooked up, you'll be thinking that there's a tiger around every corner. You'll be thinking that there's that person that bullied you back in high school around every corner as well as the tiger. He's sitting on top of the tiger and he's waiting to pounce on you. That's what you'll be thinking in your head. But you have to judge, you have to push it. You have to push yourself. The only person at the end of the day that's going to help you with your mental illnesses is yourself. You can go to counselling all day long, you can go to therapy all day long, you can be institutionalised all day long. But the only person that can learn to live with your mental illness is you at the end of the day. You have to push yourself. I can't stress that enough. If you've got irrational fears, which everyone does, and you know that they're an irrational fear, you're anxious about something that is very, very, very unlikely to happen. You don't want to bump into, Joe down the road on this day, there happens to be 200 people walking in the street, 2,000 people walking in the street. What are the chances of bumping into Joe out of 2,000 people? They're very, very slim. Okay? And what are the chances when you take into account the time of the day that you're there? What are the chances that that person is going to be there at that precise time, looking precisely at you? You know, they're next to nothing. Okay? And in all reality, you know, Joe Bloggs down the road has probably moved away. In which case, there isn't a risk there at all. But in your mind, you still think that there is. So it's, as I say, it's pushing that way of thinking. You know, the more you push against what's hardwired in your head, the more lax the solder gets, and the more freedom you'll be able to give yourself. Okay? If you're lying in bed all day long, you're not pushing anything, are you? I mean, it might help, but as I say, think about the future. That's not helping your future, is it? Lying in bed all day. You need to get up, out of bed, you need to get yourself into some kind of a schedule, okay? You need to stop going to bed so late, start going to bed a bit earlier, and then week by week, you know, get into some kind of 9 to 5 pattern. A lot of jobs aren't 9 to 5, and a lot of people I know that have suffered from mental illnesses have ended up doing night shifts and things like that. And that's just because it's a lot harder for us to get jobs. We don't click with people. So yeah, we end up doing not great jobs. But that's another thing. Don't settle for the status quo, okay? You have to always believe that it can get better, okay? I know it's hard to think like that, you know, that it will get better, but trust me, it will get better. Think of the lowest you've ever been in your life, okay? Where did it go from there? Just because it's crappy now, it's slightly better, right? It's better than it was. Just keep thinking like that. Little steps, little steps. As long as the day to day is better than yesterday, then who knows what will happen tomorrow. Okay? Just take those little steps each day. If you find yourself in a bad situation, take yourself out of the situation. If you find yourself in a bad situation, but you know nothing will actually happen due to the previous steps, you know, pushing your boundaries little by little each day, challenging your way of thinking, you know it's irrational, okay? You need to give yourself fresh evidence. You need to give your brain fresh evidence, okay? Because you were traumatized, you know, 20 years ago. That's been playing on your mind. That's every time you find yourself in a similar situation, that's going to be the first thing that springs into your head. What you need to do is push that thought down with new thoughts. Push it further and further down. Okay? Otherwise, you're just going to keep replaying that same thought. It's up the top of your head. You need to suppress that thought. Okay? It's not going to be easy. I'm not telling you it is. It's possible. Just keep pushing it down. And then it's always there. As I say, you're always going to have it. Mental illnesses aren't something you can just cure, okay? They're always going to be there. The same as alcoholism. But all you can do is suppress it. Push it down. Don't let it dictate your life. The second you let your mental illness dictate your life is the second you'll start pushing everyone away. It's the second you'll turn to alcohol. It's the second you'll turn to drugs. Okay? Don't let it control you. You're better than that. Okay? Start taking these small steps each day. Push your boundaries. Think of the future. And I promise you things will get better. Okay? If you ever feel like you're alone, you haven't got anyone to talk to, or you don't think you've got anyone to talk to, even though you're surrounded by people. Sometimes you can feel like the loneliest person in the world when you're in a party surrounded by hundreds of people, yeah? They haven't been in the same shoes as you. They don't understand your way of thinking. You know, you might think that you're a black sheep when in reality you aren't, but you feel like you are. All you need to do is reach out to people that have been in similar situations as yourself. Because I know, as a person that's suffered from a variety of issues since my teens, I know I find it a lot easier to talk to people that have been in similar situations to myself. There's a variety of support groups out there. I'm going to give a shout out to one I belong to. On Facebook, if you search for Believe, it's just spelled like believe, it's in caps, but I don't think it matters. It should have a picture of a daisy. Those guys are brilliant. They really are. They've helped me out quite a few times when I've been feeling a bit low. If you search them up, ask to join the group, everything you post stays within the group. You know, so you can spill your heart out, and none of your friends or family will be able to read it. Okay, it stays within the group. Everyone within the group has their own issues. Okay, and we all just support each other. It's a really good circle to get yourself in. Okay, but if you don't like the thought of being in a group, you can always pop me an inbox on YouTube, and I always reply to every message I receive. So yeah, if you're ever feeling lonely or whatever, you need someone to talk to who's been in your shoes, then pop me a message, okay? But as I say, just tiny steps each day, get into a schedule, think of the future, not the now, and you'll get there, okay? It's a dark place, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? I know it's a cliche, but it's true, isn't it? Today's better than yesterday. If today's not better than yesterday, well, then what could you change? You know, what would you do differently? You can't change the past, but you can learn from it. Alright, well, this has been a short video anyway. I hope it's inspired some people and it's challenged some people's mental habits. I highly recommend you do, you know, give what I've said a bash. Hopefully I haven't rambled too much. I know I've gone back and forth quite a lot, so I might do a follow-up video in the future depending on how well this one does, depending on how much feedback I get from this video. So if you've enjoyed this video, if you found this video useful at all, pop me a comment or a like, make sure to sub, and I'll probably do some more videos of this kind of nature in the future if this one proves to be useful to anyone. Okay, well, this has been Kentish. Have a good day, everyone. Kentish out.